that so bad? You're a very rude bear.
A few days ago, I watched through the entirety of The Great, and I think everybody else should too, so that's what this video is going to be about. The premise is simple, following the story of Catherine the Great in her early life before she was able to oust and likely have assassinated her then husband Peter III, her life before she was empress. So obviously this is a setting rich with intrigue, following the Russian court through stunning sets of balls, gardens, palace hallways and decadent bedrooms. And as a historical piece, there's naturally references to battles and cities captured and politicians and other pieces of context. And not much of it is true, and the show is unashamed about this. The Great is not a historical drama. It is a show with British actors and American accents, plenty of people of colour who would not have been in positions of power back in the day, and that's all totally fine, because the setting is not taken seriously.
Huzzah! Fuck off, I'm in a mood.
Oh, let me guess, a bad mood?
To repeat myself, fuck off.
Charming.
You cannot come into The Great expecting HBO's Rome or The Tudors, or even a serial like Vikings, which all things considered is very loose history. The Great is a comedy first, a dark, depraved, hysterical comedy, but you won't leave with an expanded mind or knowledge of 18th century Russia. You're here for laughs and a good story. And the story is good, strong with drama, intrigue, and tragic stakes by the end. So while you could argue that there's tonal whiplash, I think you'll find here that everything gels into a satisfying narrative. Fundamentally, this is a story about absurdism, of Catherine acclimatizing to the hedonistic and violent flourishes of the Russian court. Catherine is set to dethrone Peter, for he loves not liberty and equality and other lovely Western values, which fundamentally makes this a character-driven show. Definitely there are episodes that are driven by drama of the period, like episode 7, by far and away my favourite episode of the season, that focuses on Peter's violent response to a smallpox outbreak. So while the setting and context of The Great is underplayed for laughs, it's fortunate that the real joy of the show comes from the characters who are endowed with a real sense of dualism. The core cast are outrageous characters fitting into classic archetypes, but also have compelling motivations and reasons for you to empathise with them. And from a quick rundown of the profiles, we can see why. Catherine, our protagonist, starts out as an idealistic, optimistic fish out of water archetype. She's starry-eyed in her vision for the greatness of Russia, to a fault. This is a great perspective because it allows the audience to view through her fresh eyes the absurdity, hilarity, and barbarism of her new home. And what's fun is that she's not infallible. Her optimism is checked and challenged, and she's forced to adjust her plans and undergo an internal metamorphosis as she comes to understand the influence she holds at court, but also how limited it is.
You. Slightly terrifying proposition, but we must be brave, as you've often said.
I'm very full of words. That is for certain.
Yes.
While it is initially easy to be put off by her perpetually upbeat attitude, there really is a compelling arc that carries through the series. Peter is easily the beating heart of the first season. While he's hysterical, mercurial, and bombastic, he's also an absolute unforgivable prick.
You must capture their heart.
It is her job to make me happy. She does not love me. Everyone else does, so the fault lies with her.
His personality dominates each scene, with his commitment to being cruel, gluttonous, and petulant. His greatest pleasure seems to come from upsetting others, but the brilliance of the show is, you also kind of like him a bit, feel a little bit of pity. He desperately wants to be liked by his people and loved by his court, to fill the void left by his parents. He's often ashamed of his unfavourable comparison to his father, Peter the Great, while he has some deep-seated issues with his mother that still haunt him, as well as some Freudian longing slipped in there. So of course we like the two main characters, but that alone isn't enough to sustain the show. Instead, it's the cast of characters from the inner court that really lifts the show to another level, with all their conflicting motivations and how expertly developed they are, that we have reasons to despise them, pity them, but also root for their success. And it all ties so well into the main plot of the show, because Catherine is attempting to launch a coup, and since much of the cast has reasons to both adore and despise Peter, half the fun of the show is trying to guess at who Catherine will eventually be able to flip over and win to her side. Characters like Velmentov, the drunken Star General of Russia, who is utterly humiliated and abused for laughs by Peter and his cronies, making a joke at the poor man's expense at any chance he gets.
This rich Velmentov. Oh, bravo, sir.
I feel her.
Can you imagine? This warthog with his tiny cock that spurts only vodka on top of the...
But on the flip side, we see that Velmentov is well respected in his field, is a cunning warrior and feels empathy for his men, all of which does a great deal to tickle at Peter's inferiority complex, but he's also super gross towards Catherine. Or take Orlov, Catherine's closest confidant, a civil servant and kindred bookworm, but also an insufferable coward, at first terrified at rocking the status quo, and a general wuss.
I was hoping you'd be mad with desire for me, and then you'd help me inspire an army to kill Peter. What? You wouldn't, would you? Kill him with me? A coup?
Don't say anything else.
Fuck.
And all the court just seems to love making fun of his virginity. Or the Archbishop, who is a religious zealot who tries to guide Peter towards the orthodoxal teachings of the church and away from Catherine's liberal values. But he also has a tender relationship with his cousin and Catherine's servant, Marielle, which somewhat redeems him. Even Grigor, Peter's best friend, is a torn character. He loves Peter as a friend and enjoys his position of privilege and the fun they have, but he endures the humiliation of Peter railing his wife in every second scene, and it really gets to him, forcing his character into action and affecting the course of his story. So as you can see, I really did enjoy watching this. I will say that there is some risk in making a satire out of historical pieces like this, because inherently a part of your audience who wanted a period drama are now alienated. But I think people should try push past that. The writing is strong at all angles. There's no boring drama, and any forced tension in the romantic subplots are resolved within minutes, which is always a winning move in my book. In a way, The Great reminds me of the 2006 Marie Antoinette film, with the use of modern language and music, and a great focus on costumes and set design. But the satire and dark, perverted humour make it something else entirely, something of a more fun viewing experience. So definitely check it out when you get the chance. It's totally worth your time and seems well placed for a second season. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you for watching.
I'm killing her. A carriage accident later in the week. You must decide how to make it work with Europe and the court. Shit.